Taylor McHargue, he's ESPN College Football Analyst, and joins us on Fridays at 4:30 to look ahead to the weekend, the games he'll have as well a piece of on the television. Joins us on 365 Sports. Taylor, it finally kicks off. What are your thoughts about the Nebraska Northwestern games, 11:30 kick tomorrow? We've focused in on that a little bit in a couple other games, UTEP and UNT. To have that kind of a long trip to open up the year, what kind of challenge is that for two teams that desperately need to win?
Yeah, I still don't really know how I feel about it as a conference game. Rice a few years ago went to Australia to play Stanford, and I think if it's out of conference, it's treat that a little bit different. But especially for Scott Frost in Nebraska, they need very badly to go to a bowl game, or he's likely out there. So right off the bat, if you remember last year, Nebraska dropped a Week 0 game to Illinois and set off their season a 3-9 record. So I don't love that. I would not love it as a player or a coach to have to fly across the pond for a conference game, but for a viewer, it's great. I mean, we have 11 a.m. kick or a Big Ten game in Dublin. I think it's super entertaining, but as a player, I probably wouldn't love it.
How hard is it when you are, like North Carolina's playing Florida A&M, FSU's playing Duquesne, and some of these teams that are not playing the big games to get up for those, knowing that those are tune-up games because you've got a big one in week 1?
Yeah, I think if it's a mature team, especially for like a Florida State, who the following week they got to go play LSU. So this is a big game for them, and it is a tune-up where you want to come out and you're not going to show a lot of wrinkles, offense and defensive side of the ball in a game like that. You're going to run your base offense and base defense. But every now and then you'll see a team, it's not uncommon for one of these games against a team that they're much better than like an FCS opponent, where they sleepwalk through the first half. And those are the kind of things that you want to avoid if you're heavily favored. You want to come out, be sharp, operate your offense and defense well, win by a few scores, get your backups in, and especially for schools. Next week I've got Texas Tech and Murray State. Texas Tech wants to get out to an early big lead so they can get all three of their quarterbacks in. You want to get these guys reps. But if you're struggling and this game's close, that's the worst thing that can happen. And I'll say one more thing. For State lost to Jacksonville State last year on that Hail Mary. So they're really not in a position to sleepwalk. They need to come out against Duquesne and play well and get on them early.
You remember that game, Paul?
Yes. Very traumatic for me. Yeah.
Taylor, going back to Nebraska, Casey Thompson takes over the reins now after Adrian Martinez, moves on to Manhattan. Obviously there's an incredible amount of pressure on Scott Frost. He goes and gets Thompson, gets O'Shawn Mathis in the offseason as well. But in particular with Thompson, that offense, what do you anticipate seeing? What does he bring to the table, so to speak, for the Huskers, and what maybe looks differently for fans watching?
Well, I think the biggest thing that killed Nebraska last year was untimely turnovers, and they lost so many of their games late where they were in control. And I think that's something that you'll see improvement with Casey Thompson, where Casey Thompson doesn't have a real high ceiling, but he's also, more often than not, he's not going to get you beat. He's not going to put the whole team on his back and go get you a win. If it's, if you're playing you're playing an Ohio State or you're playing a Wisconsin, he's not going to put the team on your back and go get you a win single-handedly. He's not that kind of talent. But he's also not going to give a game away late in the way that they had problems with last year. So I think this was a good fit for him, a fresh start for him. And for Nebraska, I know I said it was 3-9 last year, but we joked around last week on the show as the best 3-9 team in the country, and really could have been a bowl team. So I think their win total, Vegas has them at 7.5 this year. So expect a much improved Cornhusker team, and I would expect Casey Thompson to play well for them and at a minimum get them to the postseason.
Well, okay, so Paul, in a matter of 8 to 10 minutes, our great friend Taylor McHargue again has mentioned Florida State and Jacksonville State, and I'm a lifelong Huskers fan that never thought in my lifetime, although you're right, today I would say 7.5 wins, I'll take it. Never thought that would ever show up in my lifetime, and I will take anything, quite frankly, no matter who they beat.
Yeah, and I think Texas fans feel the same way, right? Every now and then, a USC, there are marquee programs that go down for a while, and it takes a little bit of a reset of expectations for programs that want the quick fix, get a new hire. Everybody thought Scott Frost was going to come in, rejuvenate the program, get you to 10 wins straight away, but it just doesn't work like that. And recruiting, I know you guys know this better than anybody, but recruiting takes time. It's very rare to turn over in the season or two and get back to double-digit wins. But for Nebraska, for USC, for Texas, even for Miami, getting to 8-9 wins and having that consistently, you have to, crawl before you walk, right? That way you get back to the double digits, and then you have an outside chance at playing for your conference championships. But college football is riddled with fan bases that just have unrealistic expectations that think that you get one new hire and one new good recruiting class, and okay, next year's the year, we're going to be battling for the Final Four. It just doesn't work. Look at how long it took Georgia to be able to consistently compete with Alabama in the SEC. And it took years for Kirby Smart to have multiple recruiting classes at a high level where they could finally get over the hump and beat them.
Yeah, and that was an interesting situation because they had Mark Richt before that. And it's not like Mark Richt was a bad coach. He was a really, really good coach, but he could not get that team to the level they needed to be. He had a ceiling above them.
No, you're exactly right. But college football really comes down to one simple piece, and it's you got to be a fanatic recruiter. And that's what Urban Meyer was notorious for. As soon as he got to Ohio State, he was pissing off coaches around the Big Ten immediately, going after their committed guys, going after their firm committed guys, and telling his assistant coaches if they say no, you go back to them in a month and you just stay on them. And that's what Kirby Smart really has brought to Georgia, where it's nonstop. And the guys that do it at the highest level, they recruit nonstop. And out of Austin, where I'm based, that's some of what you hear right now under Steve Sarkisian, and I think you're seeing that with the results that they've had, obviously headlined by Arch Manning, but down the line with feels like there was a stretch there in the summer where almost every other day there was a 4 or 5 star that was committing to Texas. And that's what it takes. And there are some staff that just don't have that in them. They're not going to be fanatical about their recruiting approach, but that's what you need. And that's Lincoln Riley's pretty good at that too. And he's more on the offensive side. But if you don't have that piece, you've got no shot to compete at the highest level of college football.
Who do you think of the coaches, and there were so many this year that moved to a different program, who do you think among the ones of the programs that lost somebody might be the one that suffers the most?
Well, I'm interested to see what TCU looks like this year. I think there's a chance at SMU, under Sonny Dykes, and really when he was at Cal as well, they were really a front runner. And if they were playing a team that they were favored against, they would win. And if they were playing a team that they were not favored against, they would lose. They almost never upset somebody and play well on offense. They had a hard time closing out games against teams that were better than them if they held the lead. And now he's going up in competition. I didn't really completely understand the move from SMU to TCU. I thought with the direction SMU was going, you could make an argument that they really weren't that far behind as a program. It would not surprise me this year if if TCU struggles in their first year under Sonny Dykes, and it takes a little bit to get the footing underneath them. On the other side, a program that I think nailed their hire was Joey McGuire in Texas Tech. I love the culture fit there, and I think he's been a shot in the arm for that program. They don't have the depth there right now to compete for the Big 12, but I think he's going to get them out of the bottom half of the Big 12 almost immediately. And it's obviously going to help when Texas and OU leave, but I would expect Texas Tech to get on the right side of momentum here pretty soon under Joey McGuire.
Taylor, is another interesting game this weekend, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, and that's at UTEP, North Texas at UTEP to kick off the season. UTEP's going to sell that thing out. This is going to be a big deal for both teams. We had Phil Bennett on the show yesterday, who's the North Texas defensive coordinator, as you know. What are your thoughts on that one and those two teams kicking off the year?
Yeah, those are two teams that I know well because it's Conference USA. It's teams that I played at both of those stadiums. Playing at UTEP is tough, even when they don't have a sellout. The Sun Bowl is a hard place to play, and they're going to have that thing rocking. I think North Texas, they're favored in this game. I like them to win outright. I called their game last year that started their run where they had to go undefeated throughout the last 5 games of the season to make a bowl game, and that's what they did. They went on a run for Seth Luttrell. Honestly, probably saved his job. And now they bring back a lot of their production, including their quarterback, Austin Ani, who, by the way, is 29 years old. I like what the momentum that they have built under Seth Luttrell. I would expect them to go in and win. And UTEP, they were the opposite. They started off hot last year, and they really faded down the stretch. And if you look at the wins that UTEP had last year, a lot of really soft out-of-conference competition, which is great for them because it got them back to a bowl game. But this year's a little different. It's a tougher schedule. They got to play OU. They got to play Boise State. So there's a lot riding on this game for UTEP. If they drop this, they're already – it's going to be a much tougher path for them to get back to bowl eligibility. But in the opener, I like North Texas to win.
29 years old, baseball player. Got to be a baseball player, former baseball player. Yep. Yankees organization spent 6 years. He even got to Tampa in the what's that? AAA, Paul, Tampa.
Yeah. It's the nice little stadium they had there.
It's still amazing to me, Taylor, that the state of Texas has won national championship. One team has won a national championship since 1970 when Texas split one after back-to-back years. They won it with Darrell Royal, and his 2005 took a Vince Young, once-in-a-lifetime player. Other states have great football, too. Obviously, a lot of people take from Texas as well. But is it still hard to imagine it's been 42 years and one team has won a national title from this state, and that now is 17 years ago?
It is. And it goes back to the expectations that you talk about. Look at the year in and year out Texas puts out just by volume and the talent of the players that lead the state of Texas with 4- and 5-star recruits that go all over the country. And that's always been the thing. It's staff to come in and say, look, if we could just lock down the 4- and 5-stars in the state of Texas, we'll never lose a game. But that's easier said than done. And a lot of it has been, go back and look at the historically bad years for A&M and for Texas. They've missed on quarterbacks. For year over year, they go get a 5-star that they think is going to be the guy, and they just don't pan out. I think A&M had really high hopes for Kellen Mond at one point, and he could never get over the hump. And so his critical numbers in crunch time, third down, in the red zone, he was one of the worst in the SEC. And it's things like that go all the way back with Texas to Garrett Gilbert. I opened against Texas in 2010 when they ran out in the I formation with Garrett Gilbert under center. Like, what is this? I think that's been a big piece for programs in the state of Texas is they've just missed and let some of the best talent at the quarterback position leave the state and go elsewhere and win national championships for other people.
Thank you very much, man. We love the segment every Friday at 4:30. Taylor McHargue, ESPN College Football Analyst, former Rice quarterback with us. Have a great weekend, Taylor.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
You too. Taylor McHargue with us Fridays, 4:30. And we're not done. We were going to today